Midnight's coming up pretty quick around here.
Hi, and welcome everybody to the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Channel. My name is Ross Benjamin. I'm your host. And like every Tuesday, and it is Tuesday, December 19th, I am joined by my colleagues, Mr. Jesse Schule and Mr. Sean Higgs, all three of us at our sponsor, GamblersWorld.net. It's GamblersWorld.net, where you'll find 10 of the finest handicappers in the country, folks. And there also. We guarantee all our picks. If you don't win, you don't make a profit, we'll credit your account back the exact amount of your purchase price. Right now, we got a great special going on at GamblersWorld.net. It's a 12 days of Christmas. We call it the 12 days of savings. And today, we're reducing our college football, bowl package from $299 to $200. Just today only, up until midnight tonight. Still plenty of bowl action ahead of us. And also, you're going to get a special for Oskheim Sports. Jeff Oskheim doing a great job over the last week. He's been red hot, and we're going to give you 20% off all of his plays for today over at GamblersWorld.net. And Jeff's also got a free pick that you're going to receive. It's on the San Antonio-Milwaukee game over 249.5, and he gives plenty of reasons for that. You'll get that as well. So again, folks, chime in and go over to GamblersWorld.net, make the purchases, and let's make some money. Jesse, how are you?
Ross, are we allowed to swear on this show?
Yeah, we're not. We're not.
It's going to be hard for me to tell you how I've been doing without swearing. Sean would appreciate this reference, but I feel like Ralphie's old man in the Christmas Story when the Bumpus Hounds knocked over the turkey. I had a 1-point loss in the NBA last night, and I was on the Eagles, and I wasn't happy with how that game finished.
Yeah. That was a remarkable comeback in that last drive by Seattle. It just exemplifies Philadelphia's problems defensively, Sean. They've given up a ton of yards over the last 5 games or so. Very lucky to escape with a win against Buffalo in a game they gave up over 500 yards. And last night, actually, they probably played their best defensive game in that 5-game span up until that last drive when they allow a backup quarterback and Drew Lock to drive the team 92 yards on the last drive of the game and come away with a win. I was happy with that. I had Seattle, but I wasn't too happy because I had Old Dominion yesterday, Sean, and they blew a 28-0 lead, 35-14 going into the last quarter. And anyway, your thoughts?
Well, we'll start ultimate. I had the over in the midday money show there, so I was happy about that one. But I did have over in Philly at a 47, so I had a bad number over there, so I wasn't happy. But let's talk about so Drew Lock back up. This Philly team had been playing with fire. I've said it multiple times on here, right? Like good teams find ways to win when they're playing bad, and they were. Comeback win versus Buffalo.
Yeah.
You beat Dallas at home. You're off the KC win. You should have maybe lost that one. Buffalo should have won that. So you're getting some wins that maybe you shouldn't got. And now the defense had been playing bad. Today you get a good defense versus a backup quarterback and bad elements and everything else up there. Tough, a team that's what is Seattle even with Geno? It's like a weird kind of squad.
Yeah.
But that's welcome to the NFL, folks. You can't go and it's like the Steelers. You're getting out-yarded every game. You're gonna get some losses eventually with Pittsburgh. You're not gonna catch every break. Philly had been giving up a ton of points and winning games they should have lost. And the game last night they should have won. And you got that quarterback come in and give up a 90-yard drive after you fired the defensive coordinator. Has nothing to do with guys being out injured. It's the DC's fault. That's the problem. And I'm not a lover of Philly, but how do you get rid of? What is that about? Your defense is banged up. And who'd you play? Josh Allen's, Mahomes, Dak. Okay, you don't put Dak. You don't think he's Mahomes or whatever against Philly.
And Brock Purdy.
And Brock Purdy against Philly. Dak is an elite quarterback. He's good against that D. And it's whatever. Hey, I'm happy. Dallas wins Sunday. They wrap up the East. So.
Well, I hope they do win Sunday. I really do. I mean, for obvious reasons, for my own personal taste. But
yes,
speaking of Dallas, they got lambasted on Sunday, by the way.
Embarrassing. But that's typical. I mean, that's a Cowboy loss, whether it's Jason Garrett or McCarthy, who's a chump. And I had Dallas. I had Dallas at good numbers.
I know you did. Yeah. I had Buffalo.
I'm going to take them.
I cast all my try to stay objective as possible. I mean, just that line when you got a 7-6 team as a 2-point favorite at home against a team that's
typical 7-6 team, though.
Right? No, I spoke about Pittsburgh early in the year. Okay,
mine was the defense. You guys fell apart that second half. You didn't look good. I'm like, I can't trust that team. They put it all on the line against Kansas City. What do they have in the tank here? Even though it had a, you're in the all-in game this week against the Chargers. You need everyone. You're out of the playoffs right now or something, right?
Yeah, you're not at. We're number 9 seed. I mean, here's the thing: you got the Chargers in New England at home. Chargers on the road this week in the game. You're somewhere around a 13-point favorite now.
Yep.
And then New England at home, and they're going to be revenging that terrible loss they had at New England earlier this year. You got to say that they're going to win those 2 games, right? Or they should be favored, heavily favored anyway, to win those 2 games.
They'll be double-digit favorites against New England, easy.
Yeah, and then your final games against Miami. And Miami's got the next 2 weeks, Baltimore and Dallas. Miami loses one of those 2 games. Guess what, folks? Buffalo goes to Miami with a chance to win the division. How's that? They already beat Miami early in the year, and they got the tiebreaker on them. So
and Baltimore's on. I mean, big win for Baltimore on Sunday because they have San Fran this week coming up on a Monday night. So it's not like
they host Miami the following week.
They might be fighting. They're
playing for the number 1 seed, right? Yeah. So, and you got. I got to think that Dallas is going to. Their sense of urgency after that embarrassing performance, because there's nothing more demoralizing than what the Bills did to them. I mean, it wasn't Josh Allen. It was
that threw for 90 yards. Threw for 95 yards.
Yeah. He only attempted 15 passes. You know what I mean? And who saw that coming? I mean, James.
You see
Cook,
that, you think that game's an ugly game and it's 2017 somebody wins, or 19, like it's an ugly grind out game. Dallas is like, you know what? We won't pass the ball. We'll just try to run it, and it's 30-3 or whatever the heck it was.
31-10. Yeah.
Didn't you actually call? I think if you look back at the tapes, Sean, you actually said I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas loses this game 31-10 because Mike McCarthy and they're on the road. I think I heard you say that at some point.
No, he took Dallas.
I know he
had Dallas.
Yeah. I think I probably put him already up. Dallas could lose this one 31-10. That's Mike. The guy's not a good head coach. He's not a good head coach.
Yeah, he's a great.
Home
up until this week, he was a great. He looked like he had the offense humming, though. I mean, that's always been his strength, is his play calling ability, and that seemed to be working fine until this week. And again, in their defense, with no pun intended, I mean, when you run the ball the way Buffalo did and control the clock the way they did, and you're behind the whole game, it sort of limits what you could do offensively, and it limits your offensive possessions. And I mean, again, here's the thing, and I took a lot of flack for this early in the year when I said that Pittsburgh and Jacksonville were frauds. And I cited their point per game and yard per game differential, especially Pittsburgh this applied to. And people were coming out of the woodwork to criticize me. Well, like I said, you could win games like that, but let's not get carried away. They're very well coached. They know how to win. Good teams find a way to win. They're not a good team. Okay. When you're winning games like that, you cannot sustain those types of statistical numbers, getting outgained, not outscoring people, being behind the 8 ball when it comes to point per game. It's a matter of time before it catches up to you, because teams stop giving the games away to you. If you're depending on a team to make a lot of mistakes and give games away to you every week, it's a matter of time before it catches up to you. You got to go out there and win some games. And then when I brought up Buffalo early in the year, and I said, you know what? Even when they were 6-6, I said they were worth a flyer to win the Super Bowl at 50-1 at that time. And everybody criticized me then. And I cited the fact that not only because I grew up in Western New York and they were my team from when I was a kid, but the fact you look at their point per game and yard per game differential, they're +9 points per game. They're plus 65 yards per game. And to Sean's point, they're not an 8-6 team. They shot themselves in the foot. Now they're still on the outside looking in. There's no assurance they're even going to make the playoffs right now. But I mean, you got to think with games against the Chargers in New England, they're at least going to have a chance going into the final week of the season. And we'll see what happens. So those are the types of things, I look at in this point per game and yard per game differential. When you get this late into the season, and especially if there's like Philadelphia, you look at their yard per game differential over the last 5 weeks. That's a team, not only because they lost the last 3, but they're in decline when you look at those numbers. So it's something to keep in mind going forward. It's not a no-brainer system, but it's surely indicative of how good a team is a team as good as their record indicates, or are they not as good as their record indicates, or not as bad as their record indicates. So anyway, let's go forward here. We got 3 games we're going to be discussing today. In all college football bowl games. Jesse is going to be looking at Utah Northwestern in the Las Vegas Bowl. Sean, James Madison and Air Force in the Armed Forces Bowl. And I'll be looking at the Birmingham Bowl between the Troy Trojans and the Duke Blue Devils. Before we get to that, folks, just a friendly reminder, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please take a second to do so. You'll see a WC logo in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you're watching on your PC, just click on that. It's absolutely free, no strings attached, no hidden agenda, no subscription plans. If you're watching on your smart TV or on your mobile device, you will see a black subscribe button right underneath you. Just click on that. It will serve the same purpose. And take an extra step further, even if you have subscribed already, and go into your YouTube settings and click on that alert notification bell for the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel, and you'll be notified immediately upon any of our 6 shows weekly going up on our channel. All right, let's get to the games at hand. Let's start with you, Sean. This is an intriguing matchup. James Madison, a team that's 11-1. The only loss of the season was against App State. They're taking on an Air Force team that began the season 8-0, was in the top 25, and they proceeded to lose their last 4 games. One, again, Air Force, we know, is a run-heavy team. They run the ball 87% of the time. They average 277 yards a game on the ground. And James Madison is one of the best teams in the country stopping the run. So what do you got here?
Yeah, so you have the Air Force team that was coming into the season favored in basically all their games except for one. They lose that Army game, and then obviously get a little letdown spot at that, right? You're flat. You're thinking we could go undefeated on the year, maybe take a loss. So your Boise's obviously their toughest game, you think. Flat there, lose at Hawaii. I don't know here because you have a team that's lost for this is not your typical team. It's a service academy team. You know they're going to come in here and battle. It's not like they don't take a bowl game for granted. Like, we should have been somewhere else. You're going to get 100% effort here. I like the over 41. Now on the flip side is you got Madison. Their coach is going to, I think Indiana. He got hired at. I got 52-9 head coach. The quarterback I think is playing. I know it's weird, right? They're in the transfer portal, but they can play some play. Yeah. As of right now, he's playing, I believe. I think we're going to see points here, believe it or not. I think it won't be an ugly one. I think with a new, not a per se new, but the coaching staff, they're going to want to do something on the Madison side to get some points on the board. It's not going to be we're flat. They think they should have been in a bigger bowl, perhaps. I don't know. I see points here. 41 looks a little low. And with a academy team, I know we see everybody jumps on when they're playing each other for unders, but in this one, I'm saying over here. I think this is going to be a fun game. And we talked about a couple games last week. I thought mediocre teams equal fun games. Here you got, I think Air Force is still a good team. I'm going to go over to 41. I'm not going to look at the run defense, think, wow, it's going to be an ugly pound the clock kind of game. I like the over.
Yeah. You also look at the fact Air Force, I mentioned they run the ball 87% of the time of their offensive plays, I should say. But they average 8 passes per game. They're only completing 50% of their passes on the year, which is terrible, right? But They're
They
four
probably go for like 40 yards each.
Yeah, their 4 completions. I was just going to say that are averaging 22 yards per completion. So at least once or twice, they catch a game. It seems like they catch the defense cheating up close to the line of scrimmage, and they burn them vertically. So keep that in mind. And if that happens once or twice, it's going to create a big play, and it's going to put them probably in scoring position, or it'll go for a long touchdown. So again, the point of the matter is Sean likes this game to go over 41 between James Madison and Air Force. I don't disagree with him, but I'm not crazy about this game in particular because of the unknowns. Coach Signetti leaving, Jesse, interim coaching staff. How much does that take out of James Madison, who, by the way, I was surprised to see when it comes to strength of schedule, they actually have an edge over Air Force in strength of schedule as well. Not by much, but they do. Anyway, go ahead, Jesse.
I was under the impression that James Madison has multiple players in the portal, and they're all going to play. That they've all said that they want to play in this game, which makes sense because they kicked and screamed about getting into a bowl game for a long time, and now they're finally in a bowl game. So, I mean, you got to think James Madison treats this like their Super Bowl.
Let me ask you, just put that up. Do you think, is this going to play out like the line's sitting at 2.5? Now, you knew Western Kentucky had guys out, and that was sitting at them as a 2.5 dog, going up to 6 on game day. Is this game going to go from 2.5, thinking all these guys are in the portal, and then they're going to wake up tomorrow morning or whenever the game is Saturday and be like, oh my goodness, all these guys are playing, the line should be 8?
No, because they've made it public. If I can answer that, they've made it public that those players intend on playing, and the coaching staff, as opposed to like Chip Kelly, says, "Oh, you're in the transfer portal, but you want to play." No, their coaching staff has not said that because look at like Jesse said, they've been kicking and screaming to get in the bowl game, and right now they want to be full strength going into that game. To me, there's a distinct difference there. And I think that when you looked at the fact that the game yesterday that went from 2.5 to 6.5, it didn't go from 2.5 to 6.5 the day of the game. It went from, I believe, 4.5 to 6.5. That went right up as soon as we heard about all those transfer portals, and those players were deemed to be out. Okay, so that's not the case here. But Jesse, I'll let you give your opinion on that.
I mean, that didn't work. That didn't work out very well.
No, it did not. No, unfortunately
for any of the bettors, and it hasn't worked out so far this bowl season. You had Ohio down to a 4th string quarterback, their leading rusher, their leading receiver out, a bunch of guys in the portal, and they just blew the doors off of Georgia Southern as well. In fact, I looked at the slate, and it looks like that the teams that had the majority of the players in the portal are batting 1,000 so far in the bowl season. I don't expect that to continue.
No.
But I like Sean's take on this game over. You got 2 highly motivated teams, the Service Academy teams. They bring it every week. I mean, these guys are dedicated, serious, committed individuals. They wouldn't be in the Service Academy if they weren't, and they don't take days off, so they're going to bring it. But James Madison, like I said, this is their Super Bowl, regardless of if their coach is there. I mean, I'm assuming it's going to be coaches that they're familiar with, the assistants and coordinators and such. I wouldn't. I might look at a James Madison team total over. Like I said, I expect them to bring it here. Whether or not that's good enough, I personally think Air Force is the better team in a neutral setting, but I might say that James Madison might have a motivational edge here.
James Madison's only loss, ironically enough, it was at home when College Game Day went to their campus, and they lost to App State in heartbreaking fashion, 27-24. I think it was in overtime, if I'm not mistaken. If not, it was the last second win. I don't know if you guys recall that game, but in any event, James Madison and Air Force to go over the total of 41 from Sean Higgs. And Jesse, we're going to look at your game, which is the Las Vegas Bowl that we played at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Utah and Northwestern. And Utah right now is a 6.5 point favorite. The total is 42. You know, when we looked at Northwestern earlier in the year, it was like this team's in for a long season. Pat Fitzgerald just got fired a month or so before the season started. They had an interim coaching staff. There was a lot of rumors in the program that things weren't being done in how could I put that, in an ethical manner off the field. So, give these kids a lot of credit. They will go 4-2 straight up in their last 6. They cover their last 6, and they're in a bowl game at 7-5. But are they overmatched here against a Utah team that's played a pretty tough schedule, and they're lost, no bad losses here? And when you look at Utah, all against high caliber competition, but I'm not seeing any big wins either. So, but Utah, we know what they come with Kyle Willingham. Your take?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the money is coming in on Northwestern. This line was 7.5 last week. Now it's down to 6.5. And I can see where people are coming from. I mean, Northwestern finished the season strong. I believe they won out their last 3 games. Their coach is a Coach of the Year candidate, taking over for Pat Fitzgerald after the hazing scandal. And, you know, all the power to them. But I personally think the Pac-12 is superior to the Big Ten, or at least it was this year. And certainly the strength of schedule for these two teams is not even close. Utah had 4 losses, of course, all of them against ranked opponents, 3 of those losses on the road. The only game they lost at home this season was to Oregon. And at the time that they lost to Oregon, a lot of people, including yourself, Ross, at that time felt that Oregon was the best team in the country.
Yeah.
In that snapshot of time. So no bad losses, a lot of great wins for Utah. And Bryson Barnes is in the transfer portal, but he's actually going to play in the bowl game. And I think that's pretty significant. Just shows that he wants to play, and that's going to be a motivating factor for the players around him. I don't think he's a great quarterback. It's not like he's going to save the day because he's Bryson Barnes, but let's face it, they won games against better teams than Northwestern with Bryson Barnes this year. I think that Utah has the edge of the line of scrimmage with a better offensive line, certainly a far better offensive line, regardless of opt-outs or injuries. I still believe Utah will control the line of scrimmage. The proximity to Utah, Pac-12 friendly Las Vegas, the Pac-12 teams familiar with playing in Las Vegas, that suits them. And then you got Whittingham's career record, 3rd among active college coaches in bowl wins, top 10 all time in bowl wins with 11 wins in bowl games. So, Whittingham comes to play every week, everywhere, whether it's bowl games, whether it's non-conference play. Whittingham just likes to win. And as much as this Northwestern team was competitive, as much as their coach did a fantastic job, I can't go to bat for them and take them plus 6.5 when I look at their schedule and they're competing with the bottom of the barrel in the Big Ten West, which I think had a pretty rough season in that conference. Not as strong as you're accustomed to seeing from the Big Ten this year. And for that reason and the line movement, I will take Utah minus 6.5.
All right, Utah minus 6.5 over Northwestern, and that's in the Las Vegas Bowl being played at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. Before you guys jump all over me, I said Willingham. It's Whittingham, as Jesse corrected me. Not corrected me, but he pronounced it correctly. So there's that, because we all know that all of you out there are literary wizards and always correct us on our pronunciations and name. One guy, I remember a couple weeks ago, one guy was going on and on about how you pronounce Oregon. We pronounce it this way, you pronounce it that way to correct. You know what? Get a life.
Oregon.
Anyway, my favorite comment was when they said Ross is really showing his age.
And what was that in reference to? It's been made a couple times, hasn't it? So
yeah, I think that you mispronounced somebody's name or something like that.
Who cares? Anyway,
you probably talk about like Wee Willie Whistler or somebody from like 1917 in baseball. Like, I haven't seen a guy hit like that.
No, it was an Eddie and the Cruisers reference.
An Eddie and the Cruisers.
Yeah. So
Tom Berenger.
The other thing is, like, I have to do with Sean sometime when Tom Berenger said to the band, "We got to bring it in, guys. Bring it in," meaning you got to get tight. And I feel like saying that to Sean sometime because he tends to go here, there, and all over the place. After we start with a foundation of a conversation, and Sean likes to go in different directions at times, and I do as well. So
I'm like Easy Rider on my motorcycle.
Yeah.
Although I look like a grape on a razor blade if I was on a motorcycle.
Getting back to the topic at hand, Sean, Utah and Northwestern, your take?
Yeah, I was totally wrong about Northwestern. I was. What did you expect out of this team? I was not expecting a bowl game after everything that happened. And on the flip side of that, we mentioned, or Jesse said, what a great season for Utah. And it was a super season considering that your all-star, super all-American quarterback was out the entire year and you won these games with a backup and a backup to a backup. But I don't know. And I love the coach. But after like back-to-back Pac-12 championships and Rose Bowls, and you're sitting here, I mean, the excited. I mean, it's Vegas, I guess. Who isn't happy to go to Vegas? That's fine. But I don't know. I know Northwestern's pumped up, and you're going to get 110%. Where Utah, and it's tough to go against Whittingham. He is a great coach, and they're always win one for the Gipper. Like last year was supposed to be his last year, right? It was like, oh my, he might retire, and I don't know. It's tough to fade him, but I just don't like the spot for them off back-to-back championships. And now you're in the Las Vegas Bowl on a Saturday, second weekend of December. I don't know.
I mean, I brought that up when we started discussing our methods when we go into the bowl season, is how inspired some teams are compared to others.
It's also injury-based too, Ross. It's not like they went 10-2 and got stepped over by somebody. This is
they had higher aspirations. Yes. Is what you're trying to say. I think you would have talked to anybody in the Utah program or they're faithful. They would have fully expected to be in the Pac-12 championship game this year.
Yeah,
and they're not. They're at 8-4 and they're playing Northwestern. Now Northwestern again. They're going to be motivated. But at the end of the day, if there's one coach that I would trust for his team to be motivated at this time of year, it's Utah. It's Whittingham.
The fact that Bryson Barnes is coming to play while he's in the portal suggests to me that the team in particular is taking this game seriously. And as far as a letdown and not being happy with this spot and missing out on the playoff and the Pac-12 championship, they did have plenty of time to come to terms with that. It's not like they lost in the final week and
you knew that in September. You knew in September you're in for.
It's not a Florida State or a Georgia situation.
No. I mean, I think that when the season ended and they, the dust settled and they got 8 wins, how disappointing is that? I mean, I don't think it's disappointing at all. I think it's a testament. I mean, sure, would they like to have won but I don't think they realistically thought they had a shot at it 6 games into the season. They had to know that 8-9 wins was probably going to be their ceiling.
Yeah, and they weren't going to get into the Pac-12 championship game with 2 or 3 conference losses, probably too. Considering how strong the Pac-12 was this year, I mean, you look at the Big Ten, and I know a lot of people are going to jump all over us for saying, or get on Jesse for saying the Pac-12 was a better conference than the Big Ten this year, but it was. I mean, you look top to bottom. We're not the Big Ten was extremely top heavy. Okay, Michigan, Ohio State, and you had a team like Iowa in the Big Ten championship game. That team, again,
20-point dogs.
Yeah, they got it done with defense, and it shows the weakness of the Big Ten when nobody could supplant Iowa on that side of the Big Ten to play for the championship with those kind of anemic offensive numbers. Granted, their defense is great. Getting back to the kid Barnes, Jesse, too. This is one of those situations that Kyle Whittingham had to say, look, the kid's in the transfer portal. He wants to play. I can't hold him out like Chip Kelly did with a couple of his guys. The bottom line is if Cam Rising's ready to play next year, And he was supposed to play. He was questionable from week 1 of the season, right?
He might
He didn't play all year. So now he's saying he's coming back next year, and this kid wants to use this as a showcase and see if anybody's interested. I don't think he's a great quarterback either, Jesse. You know what I mean? But there might be some lower level Division I program that might say, "Hey, come with us, and we'll give you $1 million a year on an NIL, and you'll be our starting quarterback, guaranteed." I mean, so the transfer portal is tricky in that regard. Like the kids from James Madison that are going to play. I understand Chip Kelly because he wants to commit. I got enough depth here at UCLA that if you don't want to commit to the program and you want to enter into the portal, see ya. But that's not the case with programs like James Madison or this specific incident at Utah. Anyway, Jesse likes Utah, laid a 6.5 over Northwestern. Refreshing your memory again, James Madison Air Force from Sean over the total of 41. I'm going to take a look at the game between Troy and Duke. And, it reminds me of something Sean said on Friday's show when he looks at college basketball. And it applies to college football as well. When you see an oddity like this one, you got a team from the ACC, a Power 5 conference, as a 7.5-point underdog against a team from the Sun Belt. But I think the line is justified with all things considered. Riley Leonard, the starting quarterback for Duke. I mean, granted, Leonard was hurt at the end of the year anyway, but he's already on his way to Notre Dame. He transferred. And a Duke team that started 4-0, had some nice non-conference wins against Clemson and Northwestern. Now we know that Clemson win isn't as big as we thought it was at the beginning of the year. They finished 3-5 in their last 8. Their head coach is now taking a job at his alma mater. Is it his alma mater or where he used to coach before? Anyway, Mike Elko, who's had great success in his 2 years at Duke,
has DC over there.
Yeah, he's taken a job over at A&M. And Troy, this is a team that started 1-2. They lost at Kansas State. Nothing to be ashamed of there. And their other loss, it came against James Madison, the team we just talked about, 16-14. So since that time, they've reeled off 10 wins in a row. And we talked about the Sun Belt. The Sun Belt's a pretty damn good conference. Now, they're not a Power 5 conference, but as Sean alluded to the other day, 10 of the 12 teams were bowl eligible. So the parity in the Sun Belt goes a long way in the strength of the conference. And Troy was at the top of the heap here. And this is a Troy team that absolutely destroyed App State in the Sun Belt Conference Championship game. They've covered 8 of their last 9. They've covered their last 5 as a favorite of 15.5 or less. Their defense this year has been absolutely terrific, allowing a shade over 17 points per game and a shade over 300 yards per game. And they're going to be facing a Duke offense right now without Riley Leonard, and they never were a good offense without Riley Leonard. So they were very, I don't want to call them anemic, but to call them average might be a compliment because I don't think they were even average without Riley Leonard under center. And this is also a Troy team. Again, I talked about the point per game and yard per game differential, plus 14 points per game, plus 117.9 yards per game. And again, this line speaks volumes to me, guys. You got a Sun Belt team as a 7.5-point favorite in a bowl game over a Power 5 conference foe. I'm going to take Troy here. I'm going to lay to 7.5, Jesse.
Yeah, I'm sure glad that you didn't assign this game to me, Ross, because too many variables, both teams losing their head coach. The line speaks volumes. It might be speaking the same language that the line was speaking for last night's bowl game. It just feels like too many points for me. I agree with what you're saying.
Last night's bowl game, if I could just interject for a second. Again, you were talking Old Dominion and Western Kentucky. We weren't talking about a team from a non-Power 5 conference team against a Power 5 conference team like this matchup. That's what I was alluding to. But there are some parallels. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, just to cover a big line
Yeah.
in a bowl game and right after you've seen all this crazy thing, and not only last night's game, but I said that I don't expect this to continue, but so far the results have been rather erratic, and I'm a little gun shy to be laying too many points with.
Yeah, and you could look at it the other way. They're begging you to take the underdog here. I mean, look, the common bettor will look at this game and say Duke's getting 7.5 against Troy. Are you kidding me? Where do I sign up for that? To me, it's a fishy line too. I mean, I understand all the particulars that went into this line moving. All right. But by the same token, Sean, anytime you see a group of 5 conference team, especially from the Sun Belt, as a 7.5 point team favorite in a bowl game over a Power 5 conference team, it makes you stand up and pay attention.
Well, let's talk about Duke. Started 4-0, ranked number 17, and here you are playing Troy as an underdog. You lose your head coach. I think I've from what I was just looking at, I think there's at least 10 starters from Duke not even playing in this game. On top of that, they had to hire coaches to fill in for guys who've left. So that's number one. But the whole the Sun Belt, and you just mentioned 10 of the 12 teams, and we talk about guys opting out. Well, Georgia Southern was a little dog or a favorite against the MAC champions with a backup, a running. I thought it was a running back. I mean, that guy, who's the quarterback for Ohio? They put up 41 on this Sun Belt team. ULL was a Sun Belt team. They lose in overtime. They did cover. Appalachian State, ugly game. Miami, Ohio has pretty good defense. Or maybe, Ohio did not win. It was a Miami, Ohio.
Ohio won. Ohio won.
No, yeah, but who's
Miami
the MAC champions?
Ohio
Miami,
lost
Ohio?
13-9.
Miami of Ohio was the MAC champions.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was confused on who was the MAC champ. Ohio, I know, lost. They didn't have their quarterback. I think they had backup quarterbacks. And then Old Dominion, another Sun Belt team, choking away here. So I'm good. I like Detroit. Everything, small school, small conference. Everybody's missing from the other squad. But watching the way Sun Belt played, I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah.
I want like 7.5. But it's really the only way to look.
The difference, I think, between those teams and the team that dominated the Sun Belt in Troy was, you look at their defensive numbers compared to Troy's defensive numbers, and it's night and day. I mean, Troy's right up there nationally in terms of points allowed per game and yards allowed per game. So, I mean, again, I'm just playing the devil's advocate here. You're making good points, right?
I like Troy with you. I'm just trying, I'm trying to cover stuff for everybody out here.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
You try to get as much information as you can in these games, but it is difficult to say the least because, transfer. I wish everybody was like Chip Kelly, be like, oh, you don't want to play? See ya. Get out. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. Move on.
Yeah. And again, to Jesse's point, you become a little gun shy when you see teams that have all these transfers and they're all of a sudden they're covering, not only covering as an underdog, but winning straight up. But you can't let that affect you going forward either. You have to stick to your guns and your principles, and that's exactly what the bookmakers would love you to do, is get thoroughly confused and be gun shy because of what occurred. It's the best thing to do is put that in the rearview mirror and take every game as a single entity.
I agree with that, and I don't plan on changing my strategies.
Yeah.
But it doesn't do much for my appetite to bet on some of these minor bowls that if I'm on the fence about whether I want to bet on.
No, absolutely. You're not going to force it.
After seeing what I've seen, it's a lot easier to walk away and say I don't need to get involved in Troy versus Duke.
And let's keep things into perspective too, folks. And I know a lot of you don't want to hear this, but too bad. These are free picks. Okay, so these are assigned games. These are not games that we're taking and saying we love these games, let's give them away free, because that's not what we do. Okay, do we use free picks sometimes in our premium packages? Absolutely. But again, I want you to keep things real here, that just because we like a game as a free pick. Sometimes we're trying to give you the most intelligent decision in that matchup based on the game that we're assigned, as opposed to, like Jesse said, if I'm on the fence, okay, there's a lot of games that I've assigned these guys and assigned myself that look like attractive matchups on paper. At this time of year, we're trying to cover as much bowl action as possible, right? So to keep you as well informed as possible if you like to bet a lot during the bowl season. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we love a game. Jesse will look at a game I just gave him, okay, and say, you know what? Northwestern, I can't use them. Utah, they've been good to me this year, whatever the case may be. But this isn't a game I'm willing to bet on a premium card, but I'm assigned the game and I'm going to give you my best go at it. Same thing with Sean, same thing with myself. So keep that in mind, folks. It's not like we're throwing things up against the wall. And if you've been following these podcasts over the last 6 months or so, throughout the course of football season and before, we win a hell of a lot more than we lose. So it's not like you're dealing with amateurs like I see on a lot of these videos. You're dealing with pros, guys that are doing this full-time for a living. And that's why you should check us all out over at gamblersworld.net, where we have single game, multi-game daily packages, subscription plans of 3-day, 7-day, and 30-day. We have NBA college basketball annual packages. We have a bowl package up right now, by the way. They got marked down $99 down to $200. We got an individual handicapper in Otzkeim Sports today that you can get 20% off all his premium paid selections. We give you our guarantee that if you don't win, you don't make a profit on subscription plans of 30 days or fewer, or single game or multi-game packages. Will credit back your account. That's not a sign of weakness. We're telling you that we're going to win more than we lose. But timing is everything, right, Sean? Sean's number one in college football, number one in the NFL this year, not only on our site, but at other sites too. Yet you could catch Sean on a bad week, so we're going to give you that peace of mind. Correct, Sean?
Yeah, we always say this. You follow leaderboards, you're gonna get hurt. It's kind of like you see a guy's track record. All right, I'm gonna jump on with Sean because he's gonna have a bunch of games, and I can play a little bit every day and be happy. I'm gonna just do my thing. You want to come in bigger amounts? You got Ross and Jesse, right? It's everybody's different.
There's an appetite for everybody, and we're not all the same. Me and Jesse might be parallel in terms of volume, okay, as compared to you, but we have all our distinct. We have our own identities, is what I'm trying to say. Jesse, any comments on that, and then we'll close things up here.
Yeah, I mean, Ross and I probably play the same volume, similar volume. But I dabble in a lot more fringe sports and probably a little bit more liberal with my I don't rein in the favorites as strictly as Ross does. And yeah.
So, I mean, again, at the end of the day, it's about winning money. And if you look at our track record, all three of us and any of the guys at our site right now, there's a thing called Google search, folks. Before you start throwing, I mean, a lot of these guys chime in with these. The bottom line is this industry, there's been a precedent set before us that hasn't been good, okay? And it's very, very tough for us to overcome those obstacles sometimes. But in this day and age, I would say a lot of those guys, those scam artists and those phone salesmen using this business to scam people out of money, that's pretty much diluted these days. So do a Google search on whoever you're dealing with, folks, and make sure that you're finding some kind of information on that particular handicapper. That's not to guarantee that somebody wouldn't be unhappy at one time or another. But for the most part, when you look up us three specifically here and you do a Google search, you're going to find a hell of a lot more positive things said than negative. So in any event, all right, guys, no time for our promos. Check out the leaderboards over at gamblersworld.net. You'll find all three of us on the leaderboards, and we'll be back tomorrow. We'll be talking more college football bowl action tomorrow. And actually, these guys will be with me on Thursday as well, as we're a little shorthanded this week. And prayers and thoughts go out to Doug Upstone, who's hospitalized right now and may need surgery. And Chip has been struggling health-wise as well. So these guys are going to be with me not only tomorrow, but Thursday as well. And Thursday we'll be discussing some NFL. And don't forget our live show on Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Until the next time, for Jesse Schule, Sean Higgs, and Ross Benjamin, I'd like to wish each and every one of you all the very best. Merry Christmas from everybody here at the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Channel. Take care, folks.